Hi, my name is Troels, and in this video we're taking a comprehensive look at our new Liberis Angelic Choir 2.0, which is a substantial upgrade to our original Liberis choir, featuring a 45-piece multi-award-winning children's choir here from the Bay Area. And what's special about this library is not only that we have the full choir with all the nuts and bolts, staccato, maccatos, legatos, we have multi-vowels and all that. We also have an extensive solo singer section. But to me, what's really unique about the library is its ability to become more than just a children's choir. And as we go through the video today, I'm going to demonstrate a variety of the features that we have here in our new user interface and really show you how much you can mangle and use the children's choir. So we have a deep sampled, beautiful children's choir here, and we've been doing quite a lot of polishing and reprogramming and re-editing for this 2.0 version here. And as you'll see in the video, there's a lot more polish to the library, and you can do a lot more things, both using our phrase sequencer down here, our effects here, our chaos effects on the backside. There's a lot of things in it. But why don't we just get started here with the staccatos. I'll go through all the core articulations in the video. We'll both listen to the full choir and also to the solo singers. But let's just start here with the staccatos here. And right now you can see down here marked with the key switches. You can either play them via key switches or you can play them using our phrase sequencer here. But I'll explain that in a second. Let's just play with the staccatos here using key switches for now. Alright, so that's one way of doing it. That's actually how I prefer to use it, using key switches. But a lot of people prefer word builders or phrase sequences or whatever you want to call them. And we certainly have that in the library here. And it's very simple. If you look down here, you can actually create a long string of sequences. The velocity curve here actually dictates what the choir is going to sing. So each of these guys here corresponds to one of the articulations up here. And you can see everything is loaded at the same time. So right now, let me just make sure that I click the on button here on our phrase sequencer, and let's listen to it. And this is a really simple way. You can actually see the velocity here. It just clicks into whatever it is, and they correspond to the logical order up here as well. But as I mentioned in the beginning, it's not just that we have normal articulations. For 2.0 here, we've also created a variety of presets that are more abstract. Let's listen again to the ensemble staccatos here using the phrase sequencer, but this time you can see there's a lot of stuff going on when it comes to effects and chaos effects here on the backside as well. Check it out. You know, just something entirely different, particularly using here our form, which is an additional convolution reverb that we've added that allows you to do more textural convolutions. We also have the filter here. If you notice down here, you can actually sculpt the filters here if you want to. You can obviously also right click and assign anything you want to your CCs. We also have an A and B mode where you can actually mix different vowels together, and I'll demonstrate that a little later in the video. And then you got the phrase sequencer here as well. But let me show you another thing here. Let's take a little listen to our ensemble maccatos. These are great. They're very strong in their character. This is really the choir, the sort of full blast fortissimo, even though you can't sculpt it. And it's great for sort of building. I actually prefer to use these for either sort of traditional maccatos, but also for like more advanced cluster building. There's a lot of scores right now that are using a lot of vocal texture work, and this is definitely a good tool for that as well. Let me just show you. Let me also just highlight it here. Keep an eye down here on the mod wheel. You can see me sculpt through the dynamics. They're awesome, really, really flexible for sort of dynamic sculpting. So just really beautiful transition when you use your mod wheel on them, with a beautiful ability to sculpt through the dynamics. But as I mentioned, you can also use them in a more traditional fashion. You don't have to do crazy textual things. They're also great for sort of more traditional maccato, epic kind of scoring where you need choral phrases more precisely. And let me just demonstrate the 3 microphones in the library as well. Right now we listen to the close mic. I have a little bit of reverb added here to the demo just because I like the sound of that. But let me demonstrate both the mid and the room mics here as well. So let me just play the same thing again here, but this time we're going to isolate just the mid microphone. Let's also try the room mic here, which equals a fire microphone, so really far back in the church. And if you're really into mixing and you want the best sounding choir, all three microphones are really beautiful together. Let me just play them all together here. So you can definitely hear it gets richer in its sound when you combine all the microphones. So also in the memory footprint for this library, we actually use some really cool compression methods to get it down here. So you can see even with 3 mics loaded here, it's not that bad. It's only 58 megabytes. Let me also show you another variation here. Again, this is more of a musical sound design interpretation of the Mikados, just to show you what else you can do with the library. In this case, I'm actually assigning the filter here, and you can see it's going to sculpt through a filter sequence, and you're definitely going to hear it. And then I'm also using my sustain pedal, which has another filter variation to it, so you're going to see some interesting sort of music sculpting possibilities inside of it. So yeah, that's a children's choir as well. Let's move on here to the ensemble sustains. And again, they're laid out pretty much like staccatos here. You have key switches down here, and you can just start sustaining. And in this case, I've also added the room mic here. I just love that more full sound you get when you use the sort of back of the room a little more in the sound if you want a more sort of present big choir sound. You can see I'm sculpting with the mod wheel down here. It just gives a much more dynamic nature to the choir. And for the sustains here, I also love using them for more textual tools. You can create beautiful ambiences out of them, depending on how you play them. Let me just try to do some cluster chords here and sort of use the mod wheel again to sort of sculpt my way through it. Let me show you another variation here, again, also of the sustains, but in this case, it's more of a what I call sort of floating vocals. You can see if you click the stack button here, you can actually stack multiple articulations together to play at the same time. It gives a much more full sound. So in this case, you actually have the 45 singers times 6. We got 6 articulations playing at the same time. And this is a part of our new generic UI design. You can actually load or unload if you want to do that as well, articulations. But in this case, we have them all loaded here and all playing together at the same time. And I should also mention, this is one of our sort of more experimental bonus patches. You're also going to see the gator down here being used. So for more sort of synthetic aspect, if you want to start gating or syncing your choir to a more hybrid type of composition. Next up is our multi-vowels, and these guys are great because they sort of expand the territory of what you can do with a choral library. Obviously we have the staccatos, we have our legatos and marcatos and sustains and all the stuff we've gone through and will go through in the video, but the multi-vowels are important and integral to choral compositions because there's only so much you can do with multi-samples that are chopped up. And even when you have word generators and word tools, it always sounds sort of computerized because you're trying to assemble different vowels, and the human ear is particularly delicate when it comes to human voices. You can, just like you can detect I have an accent right now, you'll detect very quickly if something is going on. So that's why we have the multi-vowels, and they're awesome and they're completely tempo synced to your DAW host tempo as well. I use them, and I actually prefer to use them for most things because they sound more real. That can be combined in so many different ways. And let me just show you sort of the basic technique first using them. So I'm just going to play a phrase and then I'll play another phrase, and then I'll show you a little more advanced trick where you can actually combine them real time, sort of chop off different phrases and start other ones, and that also becomes a little more lively when you hear the choir sing. But let me just start with what I call the basic technique. You're going to see me trigger some of the multi-vowels here in a sort of more static fashion. And one of the delicate things we learn about vocals is that when you, for example, say, like it ended right now, adoramus, you can almost hear when I say it, if I say in slow motion, adoram, there's a morphing going on between the vowels. And that's why we've yet to hear any tool that can do this in a synthetic fashion. So what we do is that we multi-sample the choir with all the nuts and bolts, and then we also multi-sample the multi-vowels here. And let me also preface that we're actually listening to the fast ones right now. We have a whole section of slow multi-vowels, and I'll demonstrate them in the video as well. But this is for sort of faster composition. But let me show you another trick here. I'm going to play with the multi-vowels with the fast guys here again, but this time I'm not going to let the phrases ring out. I'm essentially just going to cut off at a point and start playing another one, and you could do more advanced vocal techniques by combining them real time like that, sort of following the rhythm, the natural flow of the phrase. So you can see it didn't say crucifixus all the way, and it didn't say origin all the way. It was sort of chopped up, and it still sounds real. Let me just play one more time here. So keep an eye on crucifixus and origin. That's right, there is such thing as ore sanctus, and that's sort of the magic about it. And we sometimes get people that say, oh, I want a word builder, I want to be able to do all this, and there's just certain things with phrases, with human phrases, the way that the vowels morph into each other, it's very, very complicated. So that's why we have these things in the library. Let me also show another patch here, which is sort of more experimental in nature. Again, we are going to play with the fast multi-vowels, but you can see I've actually added multiple phrases together at the same time, and it's a little more sort of in the musical sound design-y spectrum of things, but really cool and sort of a different take on what you can do with the multi-vowels. And as I mentioned, we also have the multi-vowels in a slower version here, and you can see we actually have even more phrases for these guys. They're great for slower, classical, more sort of proper orchestration stuff, really gorgeous. Let me also give you a little other tip here. When you use libraries like this that are so expressive in nature, it doesn't hurt to use the mod wheel on top of that, because you got all the sort of unique abilities to sculpt the dynamics a little more. Let me just play again what I did here, and just keep your eye down here while you hear the phrases and see how things are sort of sculpted. So I prefer to do it when they're sort of in the middle of the phrase. You sculpt it up a little bit, and you can sculpt the entire composition that way as well. So you're going to see me move it gently up and down here, sculpting the phrases and the composition as a whole. It just gives a more sort of natural flow to the choir. And speaking of natural flows, let me also show you our legatos here. Let me just let me just demonstrate all three of them. So the ah, the o, and the mm. And let me also mention that these are actually layered legatos. This is one of the new aspects of our Liberis Angelic Choir 2.0, that you have layered legato. In the past, you had a variety of more legato patches to confuse your template and compositional work, but they're all built in right now. So you got portamento when you play soft, you got normal legato on the sort of normal tempered range of playing, and then the legato gets gradually faster when you play faster on your keys. But yeah, let's just dive in. Let's listen to the ah, and then we'll go to the o and the mm. We tend to see and hear a lot of demos where people are using legatos in a more static fashion. Always keep in mind that when we program our stuff, particularly for CC1 and 11, it's designed for being used as a sculpture tool on top of the beautiful legatos here as well. So keep that in mind. We also have a bonus patch here. Let me just, it's another preset using the legatos. In this case here, I'm actually combining both the O and the articulation. And let's just check it out what it sounds like. And it's funny, every time I hear legatos with choirs, it always reminds me about Gregorian chants, but I suppose that's the monophonic nature of it. Let me play you another patch here using our la 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 patch. This is one of the sort of more cutesy and entertaining parts of the library, but it's super cool. You can actually use it sort of rhythmically in your compositions. It has sort of a happy vibe to it. And obviously, there's two sides of the coin when it comes to children's choirs. There's the beautiful and also happy part about it, the sort of angelic nature at times, but then there's also all the crazy stuff. And speaking of crazy stuff, we actually have hundreds and hundreds of effects. In this case here, you're going to see a variety of keys down here and a variety of effects here. There's no way I can go through them all in this video, so let me just try to do them a little bit of justice by playing a couple of samples from each of these categories. But just keep in mind that there are many, many samples within these categories here, and there's tons and tons of different effects in it. So let's just take a little journey into the angelic choir effects, and perhaps sometimes not so angelic. those are some mean kids. It's actually, I don't know if you noticed, but a little earlier on, I remember this very clearly. The conductor was like, all right, I'm going to say a couple of words to your kids, and then you're going to start whispering, and then it goes all crazy. And he went like, murder, 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 murder. It's a really cool effect. And again, there's hundreds and hundreds of effects in the library here, so only so much I can show you. Let me also just show you one of the bonus patches here for the effects. This is actually using them in a more reversed fashion, so you get those sort of more poltergeisty effects. Next up is our soloist. And one of the unique aspects about Liberis is that it actually contains 3 different soloists. We have Solo Girl 1, Solo Girl 2, and then we also have a solo boy. So you can sort of pick, depending on the character and sort of texture you're looking for. For the purpose of keeping this video relatively short, let me just demonstrate one of the kids here. So we'll be listening to Solo Girl 1. Let's start here with the sustains, and then we'll go into the multi-vowels and legato and all that stuff. And as you can see, I was going through different articulations up here. One of the great aspects is that you can actually control the volume. So if you didn't like this particular cluster, let's say R stood out, you can actually just lower the volume by doing it here. So you can control the volume of each articulation. And on top of that, you can actually assign each of these articulations to either your keys or your CCs if you want to have more control. We also have a couple of additional features here where you can move the key switches around, you can remove release triggers and so forth. And of course, this guy down here, as mentioned earlier as well, is a stacking function. So if you want to stack multiple articulations, or if you want to do the whole A-B thing, make sure this guy's clicked here. Let me show you another take on the solo singer here. In this case, I'm going to experiment a little more using A-B LFOs. So in this case, you can see we've actually assigned something to A and B, and we're using what's called A-B LFO here. So you're going to see the A-B mix sort of swing between the 2 different vowels here. It's beautiful, great for textual work. And just remember when you use these things here to click the on and off button here. Otherwise it won't be on, but in this case it is. Let's listen to it. I sometimes just sit back when we do these things, when we do these libraries, and just think to myself, like, how far we've come with technology. Like, all right, so right now you can pick virtually anything you want from a choir. You can assign crazy gating effects to it, make it all shimmery, and then back to sort of this core state. You can virtually do any freaking thing you want. And I think that's one of the beautiful things, particularly here about Liberis version 2, that you have all the tools here for if you want to do crazy sound design. We haven't even touched the chaos effects here, which is an addition to it. And also additional convolution reverb down here form that have textual convolutions. But this is what we call front-faced effects here. All these guys can be right-clicked upon and assigned to whatever CC you want here. So you actually have full control over the effects. It's really, really powerful, super easy to use, but you can really mangle the choir and do crazy things with it. And if you want to do more dramatic stuff, you can essentially just drag your mouse here and draw any kind of curve you want. We also have a randomizer here that'll randomize the curves. And if you click this guy here, it's going to be reset to its core state. So there's a lot of things you can do. You can also control the speed actually, and that's important. You're going to see this guy here, and this goes for a variety of our libraries. The speed control is this little knob here. So you can assign how quickly you want it to go through this particular LFO here. Another great aspect to the library is also the fact that we sampled multi-vowels for the soloist as well. Let me just show you a couple of them here for Solo Girl 1. And as you can hear, these are fragile, they're delicate, there's personality in them. But once you combine them, if you need that fragile voice on top of your big composition, these are perfect. You want to have a little bit of that innocent, almost pitchy at times thing going on. It just creates that very tender, innocent kind of sound. Let me also show you one of our bonus patches here for the soloist as well. It's not just that you can mangle with the big choir, you can certainly do it with the soloist as well and create some really, really cool sort of cluster textures out of it. And last but not least, you can also play legato with the solo girl here. And there are so many other things I could show you. Obviously, we have more soloists in the library. There's a bunch of other things you can do with the Ensemble Choir. We have tons of different presets. We have tons of tempo sync presets as well, if you want to synchronize everything to your compositions. Obviously, we also have the backside of the entire thing here. If you go down here and see, you can see we have effects. And when you click on it, you actually activate our chaos effects here as well. And there's so much that can be done in terms of sort of mangling things further when it comes to sound design with these guys as well. But most importantly, I hope you've enjoyed this little journey into the magic world of our Liberis Angelic Choir 2.0.